Logan Pierce believed in the small ordinances of marriage: show up, do the work, keep the bills paid, and never make a scene. He had learned early that reliability was a kind of quiet honor. The garage smelled like motor oil and old coffee, the fluorescent lights hummed, and the radio always played a little too loud to be polite. He liked the rhythm of that place, the way problems presented themselves like tangled wires, then surrendered to patient, clever hands. Fixing things had been the honest part of his life. The rest, the life after closing time, the life that carried him home, belonged to Cassandra. For 6 years they had built a life together, from the grey scratch of rent receipts and the soft promise of weekends. His mother used to say that marriage was 70% work and 30% forgiveness. Cassandra, in the early days, had laughed at his devotion and kissed him like she meant it. In those years, she was all bright noise, laughter tossed into an empty room, coffee poured and forgotten, late-night plans that always included him. She liked lists and heels and perfume that smelled like what she called weekend. Logan liked the way she rearranged the living room on a whim. He had loved the way she argued with him about nothing and then fell asleep in the crook of his arm with her breath warm against his neck. Trust had become his currency. He wore it like a badge, the quiet man who trusted his wife. He was proud of that. He thought it made him better, more secure. You don't check the person you love, he told himself. You treat them like an ally, not an accusation. He believed in that until photographs taught him otherwise. It began as the kind of niggle that makes a man stare at his phone for no reason. A later arrival home on a Friday, a text that came too late and read like an afterthought. Don't wait up, babe. At first, Cassandra's babe was the same inside joke, the same tilt of affection Logan enjoyed. Then those messages stopped being consistent with the hours, with the way she smelled when she came home, perfume mixed with cigarettes, the laugh in her voice a fraction hollower. Logan noticed, then doubted his noticing, then tried to bury the shadow and go on with the business of being a husband. The day the photos arrived, he was folding laundry on the couch. The lamp threw a small pool of light over the denim and the socks. His hands moved on autopilot, towels, shirts, the rhythm of a life in which details mattered. Cassandra had texted him earlier, a soft, "Love you, babe, see you soon," and he had smiled at the screen as he had 1,000 times before. He had believed it. He wanted to. Then his phone buzzed again, a different tone, name withheld. Marcus, the private investigator he'd finally hired after 3 months of restless suspicion, had kept his promise. Logan opened the message before his hands had time to remember caution. The picture hit him like weight. Cassandra in a red dress against a backdrop of streetlight and rain, arms wrapped around another man, Brandon Hale. Marcus had told him, and kissing him with a kind of ferocity that belonged to secrets kept too long. The clarity of the image made denial impossible. The way Cassandra's fingers dug into the back of the man's neck, the cruelty of her smile as if she were tasting something forbidden and delicious. Logan's body moved and did not. The laundry basket slid between the couch cushions, the socks spilled like small confessions across the carpet. He tasted something metallic and cold. The living room seemed suddenly too large, the ceiling too far away. He did not scream. He did not pick up the phone and call a dozen people to spill the betrayal into the world. He sat very still and let the photograph settle into him in pieces. There was a slow, surgical clarity to the pain. Anger, yes, but a cold and measured animal under the anger. It wanted to act, not erupt. Logan had, for better or worse, practiced patience. He had learned that patience in the shop, coaxing a stubborn engine into purring again. He knew how to wait for the right tool, the right moment. In that strange, lucid minute, he understood that this, the betrayal, the photograph, the lie, could be answered in a way that matched its magnitude. It wouldn't be dramatic, it would be exact. He hired Marcus because instinct had run out of favorable interpretations. Marcus was 40, grey at the temples, and had the kind of voice that made lies collapse on themselves. Marcus's rate was reasonable and his photos were indisputable. Logan had sat in a booth at a diner and handed over cash with the same steady gaze he'd used when negotiating parts with suppliers. Marcus had given him a folder with a zip and a promise: keep your hands clean, the rest is paperwork and timing. Logan had nodded. He had a plan forming like an engine being reassembled, small parts arranged with an iron discipline. At the shop, he kept his head down. A slow man with grease under his nails is the kind of man the city trusts to keep its vehicles and its business moving. He took the work because the world still required it. Invoices still needed entries, mouths needed feeding. He tried to be unremarkable. Customers did not expect melodrama from the man who changed brakes and set wheel alignments. He asked about the kids, about last weekend's weather, about whether the neighbor down the street had finally stopped leaving empty beer bottles on the curb. On the outside, his life looked intact. He smiled at the young mechanics, taught them how to read a timing belt, how to let a stubborn bolt loosen its grip with steady force rather than a violent yank. Inside, he was cataloging motives and times. Logan wanted details. He wanted precision. Marcus obliged with timestamps, license plates, hotel receipts, and the sort of chronological precision that would make an alibi crumble. Brandon Hale had a predictable schedule. The downtown office, the gym that closed at 10, the bar where Cassandra was seen slipping through the back door with him. Marcus had documented hotel checkouts in the low hours of the morning. He had photographed the two of them at lunches and late-night exits. The folder thickened under Logan's hands, and with every new print, his sense of wrongness calcified. There was a human calculus in all of this, a ledger Logan felt compelled to balance. He did not only want to punish, he wanted consequences that fit the scale of deception. There were people to consider beyond Cassandra and Brandon. Melissa Hale, Brandon's wife, a teacher with a cheerful smile in the photographs Marcus produced. A woman who put a sandwich in her husband's lunchbox, who attended parent-teacher nights and believed her marriage intact. Logan considered her the way a man considers the cost of a repair. He could not be content to simply tear apart what had been broken. He wanted the fairness of exposure, the kind that offered no ambiguity. And so his plan gathered itself, a low hum in the back of his mind. He would not break the law. That rule was a bright line he had learned to respect after watching friends flounder in poor decisions and worse outcomes. He would not reduce himself to slander or malice that would reflect badly on him. Instead, he would construct a collapse so public and so well documented that truth would do the damage for him. He would make the truth land where it could not be ignored. He tested his resolve like a mechanic tests a suspect alternator. He smiled wider at dinner. He brought home flowers he knew she liked even though their stems would wilt by the end of the week. He left notes that read like small domestic prayers, grocery lists, reminders about oil changes, a folded 50 with a scribbled "for lunch." Cassandra noticed the change but read it differently. She took his increased attention as evidence of unbothered love. She drank it like nectar until it fed her negligence. There were small private rebellions he allowed himself in the dark. He stayed up later than he used to, pretending to watch late-hour sports that he never really followed. He read the messages from Marcus with a hungry attention, mapping the times and places. He learned that Brandon worked in a downtown financial firm and that the firm's Christmas party was a known event at the country club on Colfax, that Melissa tutored after school and coached a little league team on weekends. He memorized the routes Brandon used home from the office and the corners where taxis waited, the bars that kept their lights on a little later than others. He was surgical because he believed in the dignity of consequence. If she could arrange secret meetings like a casual deception, he could arrange exposure with the same dispassionate method. Logan's willingness to perform normalcy was perhaps the most ruthless thing he did. He cooked dinners and folded shirt sleeves with the same care he had before the photographs. He learned to laugh at jokes he would have once found dull. He repaired the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom with a proficiency that made Cassandra marvel at his attention to small details. "You're so handy," she'd say, eyes bright with that old affection. Sometimes she would drape herself on his shoulder with a weightlessness that belonged to the Cassandra of their early years. He let her stay there because it made the later collapse cleaner, like a house emptied of valuables before a necessary inspection. The house took on a strange double life. In daylight, it was a sanctuary of domestic success. Bills paid on time, dinner cooked, an occasional freshly mown lawn. At night, it became a quiet war room where Logan spread photographs and receipts across the kitchen table like a cartographer drafting a map of betrayal. He studied angles, exhaust pipe types, timestamps. He traced license plates with his finger, the way a mechanic traces the line of a wedge. Truth was a tool he polished. He catalogued times when Cassandra's phone lit up and when Brandon's car plate matched a valet receipt outside a downtown restaurant. He learned to see patterns the way he saw patterns in engine trouble, intermittent but telling. Sometimes he allowed himself to imagine how it might feel to confront her raw and loud, to raise a hand and throw the photographs across the room and let them flutter like so many lies. He imagined the wordless things behind the bones of her face. Why did she want more than he had? Was it loneliness or a hunger that had nothing to do with him? There were nights when he replayed their vows and tried to find the exact syllable where misdirection began. He told himself all the right things, that men like him deserved the truth and that deceit had to be answered. But in quieter moments, when his fingers traced the crease of a photograph, he felt something like pity for them both, for Cassandra, for the way people sometimes find in other people a mirror of what they stopped being, and for himself, for the naive faith that had been easily exploited. He thought about Melissa and the damage that truth would do to a woman's weekday routine, to the small victories of teaching and PTA notices. He worried, perversely, about being the architect of that damage. He did not want to be cruel for its own sake. He wanted the scales to balance. He wanted to make it impossible for anyone to shrug and call Cassandra's actions an insignificant lapse. If betrayal had been performed like a casual pastime, its exposure should be commensurate, precise, unavoidable, and public. So he waited, he watched, and he prepared. On a Thursday morning, he called in an extra set of hours at the shop and ordered a new set of business cards for a supposed after-hours charity he invented. He created an email address that looked official and tasteful. On a Tuesday night, he stayed up late and anonymously forwarded one of Marcus's photos to an address he had scraped from an online school directory, Melissa's faculty email. He sat back and felt nothing at first, then felt the slow slide of anticipation as the plan moved from abstract into motion. He did not text Cassandra, he did not confront her with a single furious syllable. He wanted her ignorance to persist until the very hour when exposure would be most devastating. He wanted the world where their neighbors' eyes would be witnesses and the PTA moms would lean forward and make the right contracts in their heads. There were, inevitably, moments of selfish satisfaction. He imagined Brandon's life crumbling with the same mild curiosity he felt when a stubborn part finally yielded to a wrench. But he also recognized the emptiness that success of revenge could leave in a man's chest. He had seen that in movies and in the quiet men who came to the shop after a divorce, with their hands more worn than their expressions. He wasn't immune to the knowledge that vindication is not the same as healing. He acknowledged that while he wanted to make them pay, he might also be exposing himself to the cost of living inside the result. Cassandra's careless ease delighted and infuriated him in equal measure. She listened to stories about other people's problems with the soft concentration of someone whose life was rarely complicated. She told him about colleagues and a new friend at Pilates who really gets me. She called Logan Babe the way someone calls a dog by name, familiar, affectionate, and indifferent to permission. She arranged a dinner with neighbors and left early to meet the girls, as Logan fixed the hood of a customer's car and quietly imagined the arrangement that would unmake her freedom. Marcus, on his side, had been precise. He provided the pattern and allowed Logan to see it in its full relief. With each photo Marcus delivered, Logan's certainty thickened. Where there had been a whisper of doubt years ago, now stood a structure of cold facts. Brandon had been recorded leaving a hotel with Cassandra at 7:23 a.m. He had been photographed in a dim parking lot at 11:03 p.m. He had been seen at the same bar at midnight on the night Cassandra told Logan she was buying new shoes. Marcus had also dug up more than affection, a line of suspicious expenses, the occasional late-night credit card charge that suggested a familiarity more than an accident. Logan filed each one like a mechanic files a worn gear. He kept them to study later. His plan had 3 parts, and while he was not yet at the final move, the logic of it felt inevitable. 1 document beyond the photographs make the story both legal and unarguable by preserving purchase records, receipts, and witnesses. 2. Deliver the truth in a way that made denial education rather than accusation. And 3. Step away from the wreckage before it consumed him. The last part was the most difficult. He knew the danger of becoming a man defined by revenge. He had watched others stay to peer over the ruins of their former lives until the ruins were the only thing they owned. On the night Cassandra came home late again, breath lifted by perfume and amusement, Logan stood in the doorway and watched her as a man watches a familiar road in the rain. Close attention, a map in his head, a reckoning of the turns. She tossed her purse on the hallway table, shrugged off her coat, and kissed him like a rehearsed apology. Late night, she said, smiling in a way that once had made his heart drop into his pockets. He returned the kiss with a practiced tenderness and asked, "How was it?" She said, "Just the girls, you know Howard Island." Her hands were busy untangling a strand of hair, her eyes flicked away for a beat. He said, simply, "Okay." The voice was controlled, not cold, but steady. She moved on, content that the relationship was whole. She had no idea that she walked in the shadow of evidence, that every step she took and every laugh she tossed into the world had already been catalogued in a folder on his kitchen table. She had no idea that her husband had become a patient man with a plan, that his version of justice would be quiet and inexorable. That night, Logan lay awake for a while, the photographs folded against his chest like a heatless iron. He did not live in rage. He lived in an arctic, precise resentment that refused to melt into spectacle. He recognized the cruelty in that arithmetic, but could not find a way back to the simple man who had once believed trust could be untested. He told himself that he would be fair, that he would not become a cartoonish villain. He told himself that the truth would be his instrument and nothing more. He slept 3 hours. He woke with the same cold calm in his chest and a renewed sense of slow momentum. The chessboard was set. The pieces had names and addresses and habits. He would move them predictably and with purpose. He would not be a man of violent theatrics. He would be a man of consequences, and he would make sure that the falling was public enough to be undeniable. When the Friday came that he had circled in his head, he would be ready. For now, he kept his face even, his hands steady, and his patience like a tool he had learned to wield better than any wrench. The first chapter of The Ruin was not dramatic, it was domestic. It was the folding of laundry and the smile at dinner, the handshake with a long-time customer, and the quiet scrape of a photograph across a kitchen table. It was the quiet establishing itself as something more dangerous than a fight, the meticulous, patient construction of a truth that could not be argued away. Logan Pierce had always been the sort of man who fixed things. He had been a husband for 6 years. In the coming days, he would decide what it meant to fix a life that had been quietly, deliberately broken. And when he acted, he would do so with the same precision he brought to the engines he coaxed back to health, careful, inevitable, and unsentimental. The next morning, Logan was already awake before the alarm hummed on the nightstand. He moved quietly through the house, brewed coffee, and left Cassandra still asleep in their bed. She looked peaceful in the early light, hair scattered across the pillow, her breathing even. Anyone else might have thought she was the picture of innocence. Logan knew better now. To him, that softness was camouflage. At the shop, no one suspected a thing. He laughed with the younger mechanics, teased them about leaving bolts loose, showed them again how to angle a socket wrench without stripping threads. His reputation was unshakable, steady, patient, reliable. Customers dropped off their cars, trusted him with their vehicles, and went on with their days, never knowing that under his calm, grease-stained exterior, he was a man quietly dismantling his own marriage. Logan had always believed patience was his sharpest tool. Engines taught him that wait, listen, study, and the fault would reveal itself. Cassandra's betrayal was no different, and now he had a mechanics diagram of her infidelity. Marcus Doyle, the private investigator, had built it piece by piece. They met again at a small diner off Colfax Avenue, the kind of place where the linoleum floor curled at the edges and the waitress knew your name after one visit. Logan slid into the booth across from Marcus, who was already nursing a black coffee. Marcus had a thick folder with him. "She's seeing him almost every Friday," Marcus said without ceremony. "Same guy, Brandon Hale. Works at a financial firm downtown. Married too. His wife's name is Melissa. Schoolteacher. Been married 8 years. Logan didn't flinch, but his hand tightened around the mug the waitress set in front of him. He opened the folder. More photos. Cassandra laughing across a table at a dimly lit bar. Cassandra slipping into Brandon's car. Cassandra stepping out of a hotel with her hair messy, sunglasses hiding her face. Each photo cut deeper than the last, yet Logan only nodded. "Keep digging," he said, his voice flat. "I want everything. His schedule, his wife's, his workplace, where they meet. Who else might know?" Marcus hesitated. "You're not planning anything illegal, are you?" Logan smirked, though his eyes were hard. "I don't need to break the law to break them. I just need the truth and the right timing." Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, I'll get you what you need." In Drines, back home, Logan slipped into his role as though nothing had changed. Cassandra returned late again that night, perfume clinging to her like smoke. She kissed his cheek, tossed her heels by the door, and smiled like everything was perfectly normal. "Long day?" he asked, pretending to be tired but unconcerned. "Yeah, just the girls," she said, her eyes flicking away for a second. "We lost track of time." Logan smiled faintly. "As long as you had fun." Relief flickered across her face, quick as lightning. She had no idea he already had the proof spread across their kitchen table like a crime scene. Over the next 2 weeks, Logan played his part with chilling precision. He grew more affectionate, surprising Cassandra with small gifts, cooking her favorite meals, listening as she talked endlessly about friends she wasn't actually with. She basked in his attention, certain she had fooled him. He memorized the way her lies spilled out so easily, and he stored every detail away like ammunition. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Cassandra leaned against him while scrolling through her phone. For a brief second, Brandon's name lit up her screen before she locked it quickly. Logan noticed. He always noticed. "You're quiet tonight," she said, tilting her head at him. "Just tired," he answered softly, brushing her hair back. "But you look happy. That's enough for me." Her eyes softened. For a fleeting moment, guilt flickered there, but it disappeared almost instantly, buried under her smile. By the 3rd week, Marcus had everything Logan needed. The investigator delivered a thick folder filled with timelines, receipts, and detailed notes. Cassandra and Brandon had patterns. Friday nights, sometimes Saturdays, hotels near Brandon's office, occasional dinners in quiet corners of downtown. His wife, Melissa, has no clue, Marcus said during their final meeting. Devoted woman, teaches at a middle school, volunteers on weekends. From everything I can tell, she still believes she's married to a good man. Logan nodded slowly, staring at the folder in front of him. He thought of Melissa, packing lunches, grading papers late at night, smiling at children who weren't hers. A woman who trusted her husband the way Logan had trusted Cassandra. Rage curled inside him, cold and deliberate. "Thank you," Logan said, sliding a thick envelope of cash across the table. Marcus raised a brow. "This is where I step out, Logan. What you do with this, that's on you." Logan smirked, his jaw tight. "Don't worry. I'm not stupid. I'm not violent. I'm patient. And patience is worse than violence." At home, Logan began setting the stage. He printed the photos, highlighted receipts, mapped out hotel visits and bar meetings. He spread them across the kitchen table late at night, studying them like a general preparing for war. The pattern was undeniable, airtight. No one could talk their way out of this. And Cassandra? She carried on, oblivious, wrapped in her own deception. She laughed louder than before, texted less, and grew bolder with every Friday night lie. She thought she had won. But Logan Pierce was waiting. Every smile he gave her was laced with venom. Every soft "I love you" was another nail in the coffin of the life she thought she controlled. He wouldn't scream. He wouldn't beg. He wouldn't even argue. He would let her lies unravel in the most public, undeniable way possible. Logan Pierce wasn't a man who broke. He was a man who planned, and his plan was nearly complete. It wasn't forced, not exactly. It was something sharper, colder, yet wrapped so carefully in warmth that Cassandra never noticed the blade behind it. She thought she had him fooled, that his affection was the fruit of ignorance, not calculation. But every kiss, every dinner he cooked, every small kindness was another thread in a trap he was weaving just for her. Patience, Logan reminded himself. Engines don't reveal their faults at once. You listen, you wait, you let the problem show itself. And Cassandra was showing herself more every day. The bait. Friday nights were the heart of her lies. That much Marcus's dossier had confirmed. Brandon left his office around 6. Cassandra usually slipped away from home with some excuse about wine with the girls or late project deadlines. They would meet in quiet bars or check into hotels under names that weren't theirs. Logan never interfered. Not yet. Instead, he adjusted his behavior. He leaned into the role of devoted husband. Affectionate, thoughtful, forgiving. He bought her flowers on random weekdays, left notes in her car, made sure her favorite wine was always chilled. Cassandra's suspicion that he might have noticed something melted away under the weight of his kindness. She leaned into it, convinced she'd fooled him. But Logan was counting the days, the hours, the minutes. He wanted her comfortable. He wanted her arrogant. He wanted her to believe she was untouchable so that when he pulled the ground out from under her, she would have the longest fall possible. The coincidences. The first move came one Saturday afternoon. Logan suggested they try a new cafe downtown, one Marcus had noted as a spot Brandon and Cassandra had visited. He made it seem like an afterthought, casual, as if he'd simply read about it in a local paper. When they arrived, Cassandra stiffened for a brief second, her eyes flicking around nervously. Logan noticed, but pretended not to. He sipped his coffee, complimented the pastry, and let her calm down. 2 tables over, Brandon Hale sat with co-workers, unaware. Logan caught the way Cassandra's gaze lingered too long, the flicker of panic she barely suppressed. He tucked the observation away, smiling at her like nothing was wrong. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just tired. Long week." Logan reached across the table, brushing her hand. "I know. You deserve a break." Inside, he was laughing. The net was already tightening. The confidence game. The more Logan played the role of perfect husband, the bolder Cassandra became. She stopped hiding receipts, stopped being careful with her excuses. She believed he trusted her too much to question anything. On Tuesday evenings, he began dropping by her office just to surprise her. He'd bring her dinner, check in, sit for a while. Sometimes she was there, sometimes she wasn't. Each absence was noted, each lie catalogued. He'd kiss her cheek, wish her good luck on her late meeting, then drive home and pour himself a whiskey, checking Marcus's texts to confirm where she really was. By the 3rd week, Cassandra was slipping. She came home one night, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't Logan's. When he hugged her, she stiffened before forcing a laugh. "You smell nice," he said softly. "Oh, it's just perfume from one of the girls," she lied, eyes darting away. Logan kissed her forehead, pretending to believe her. "You're beautiful, no matter what." Her smile held, but barely. The long week. Logan spent nights at the kitchen table, the folder spread before him like a war map. He charted Cassandra's patterns, Brandon's schedule, Melissa's routines. Every movement overlapped neatly, as if fate itself had designed their betrayal to be easy to track. Melissa. That name haunted him. The thought of her sitting at home grading papers while her husband crept into hotel rooms with Cassandra made Logan's rage boil, but he kept it hidden. He wasn't going to call her. Not yet. He wasn't going to break the illusion until the exact right moment. Instead, he refined his plan. Exposure. Not violence, not chaos. Surgical precision. He wanted Cassandra cornered. He wanted Brandon trapped. He wanted Melissa to see the truth with her own eyes, not through rumor, not through whispers, but through undeniable evidence, setting the stage. Logan's opportunity came in the form of a charity gala Cassandra had been planning to attend with friends. Marcus had confirmed she wasn't going with friends. Brandon would be there too, networking with clients. Logan decided that would be the stage. In the days leading up, he became more attentive than ever. He helped Cassandra pick a dress, zipped it up for her, told her she looked like something out of a dream. He took photos of her on their porch, smiling like the proud husband. "You sure you don't want to come?" she teased, tilting her head. Logan chuckled. "Nah, you'll have more fun with your friends. I'll just slow you down." She kissed him lightly, almost too lightly. "Don't wait up." Logan smiled. "Of course not." The second she was gone, he opened the drawer where the photos sat, waiting. The folder was thicker now, nearly bursting with proof. He slid the evidence into a plain black envelope, sealed it, and tucked it under his jacket. It was time. The watching. That night, Logan didn't go home. He parked 3 blocks away from the gala, leaning against his truck, watching the flow of luxury cars and glittering dresses. He wasn't dressed for the occasion, but he didn't need to be. He wasn't going inside. Marcus had set it up perfectly. Inside the gala, Melissa Hale would receive the envelope delivered anonymously by a hired hand. The photos, the receipts, the timestamps. Cassandra and Brandon, laughing together in hotel lobbies, kissing in dark parking lots, holding hands like they were the only 2 people in the world. Logan didn't need to see the moment Melissa opened it. He only needed to imagine it, her face going pale, her fingers trembling, her entire world collapsing in a matter of seconds. By the time Cassandra came home later that night, smiling faintly and pretending she was drunk from champagne, Logan was sitting on the couch with a book. "You're still up?" she asked, kicking off her heels. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "How was it?" "Fun," she replied too quickly. "Lots of people." "Long night." Logan smiled, setting his book aside. "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." Cassandra leaned down, kissed him, and walked upstairs. Logan watched her go, his chest tight, his heart heavy. He didn't feel victory yet. He felt something sharper, emptier, but the lure was set, the hook was in place, and soon, very soon, the trap would spring shut. Logan woke on Friday morning with the same calmness that comes before a storm. The house was silent except for the sound of Cassandra's hairdryer upstairs. He brewed coffee, leaned against the counter, and stared at the black envelope sitting on the table. Inside, photos, receipts, hotel timestamps, a summary Marcus had prepared. A complete autopsy of Cassandra and Brandon's affair. Tonight, all of it would surface. Logan wasn't nervous. He wasn't angry. He felt precise, cold, focused, like a surgeon with a scalpel, ready to cut away the rot. The setup, the gala had been the rehearsal. Tonight was the real performance. Brandon had invited Cassandra to a private client dinner at an upscale restaurant, not some dimly lit bar, not a seedy hotel, but a place full of colleagues, clients, and spouses. Marcus had confirmed Melissa would be there as well. Logan knew this was the stage he wanted. Polished wood floors, soft candlelight, silverware clinking, everyone pretending their lives were perfect. A theatre of lies. And in theatres, truth cuts loudest. He timed everything with military precision. The evidence would arrive at Melissa's hands just after dessert was served, when the room's attention was loosening, when Brandon's guard was down. Cassandra would be glowing beside him, flushed with stolen affection, thinking she had managed another flawless night. But Logan had no intention of letting the evening end quietly. Cassandra's departure. That evening, Cassandra dressed carefully, humming as she applied lipstick in front of the mirror. Logan leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "You look beautiful," he said softly. She smiled at him through the reflection. "Thanks. Don't wait up, okay? These things always run late." "Of course," Logan said, stepping forward to kiss her cheek. "Have fun." For the first time, he thought he caught something in her eyes, a flicker of hesitation, maybe guilt. But it passed quickly, replaced by the same confident mask she always wore. She grabbed her clutch and heels, blew him a playful kiss, and was gone. Logan sat on the couch, the silence swallowing the house. He didn't follow her this time. He didn't need to. The wheels were already turning. The dinner. Inside the restaurant, Brandon was the perfect host, laughing, shaking hands, his arm brushing Cassandra's under the table. She played her role effortlessly, smiling at clients, whispering jokes in his ear. To anyone watching, they looked like business partners, maybe friends, maybe a little too close, but nothing scandalous. Melissa sat 2 tables away, her posture polite but slightly weary. She had been to enough of these dinners to know how long they dragged on. She smiled when spoken to, nodded when necessary, but her eyes kept drifting to the clock on the wall. When the waiter cleared dessert, an envelope appeared on Melissa's plate, hand-delivered by a discreet young man who vanished before she could ask a question. Her brow furrowed. She opened it, and then the world stopped. The explosion. The first photo was of Brandon and Cassandra kissing in a parking lot, her arms looped around his neck. The second, slipping into a hotel. The third, leaving in the morning, hair tangled, clothes the same as the night before. Melissa's hands shook. She flipped through them, her face draining of color. She looked up, across the table, directly at Cassandra. Brandon noticed the silence first. He turned, saw the photos in Melissa's trembling hands, and froze. "Melissa," he started, her voice cut through the chatter like a blade. "How long?" The room quieted instantly. Forks clinked against plates. Dozens of eyes turned toward their table. Cassandra's smile faltered. Her face went pale, then flushed crimson. She reached for Brandon's hand under the table, but he jerked it away. "Melissa, please," Brandon stammered, his voice cracking. "How long?" she demanded again. Louder, this time. Whispers spread through the room. Colleagues exchanged shocked looks. Someone gasped. Cassandra tried to intervene. "Melissa, let's not do this here. Don't you dare speak to me," Melissa snapped, her voice shaking with fury. She lifted one of the photos and slammed it onto the table. "You've been sleeping with my husband." The restaurant went dead silent. The collapse. Brandon's client stared at him with a mix of disgust and disbelief. One man muttered something under his breath. Another couple stood, shaking their heads as they left. Cassandra's hands trembled. She tried to stand, but her chair caught the hem of her dress and nearly toppled. This isn't what it looks like," she whispered, her voice hollow. But everyone could see it. Everyone could see exactly what it was. Melissa shoved the photos into Brandon's chest. "We're done," she spat. "You can rot with her for all I care." Then she stormed out. tears streaking her face, the room parting for her like she was a storm tearing through the calm. Brandon tried to follow, but the stares of his colleagues pinned him in place. His career, his reputation, all of it was slipping through his fingers, right there in front of the people whose approval he depended on. And Cassandra? She sank back into her chair, her face crumpling as she realized the perfect life she thought she had balanced was crumbling to dust. The watching, Logan wasn't there to see it in person. He didn't need to be. Marcus had arranged for a discreet recording, a hidden camera placed earlier, capturing the chaos as it unfolded. Later, Logan would sit in his living room, whiskey in hand, watching Cassandra's lies unravel on screen, watching the panic, the shame, the public collapse. But in that moment, while it was happening, Logan sat quietly at home, his phone buzzing with Marcus's simple text. "It's done." He exhaled slowly, leaning back on the couch. The house was dark, the silence deep. He thought he might feel triumphant. He thought he might feel whole again. Instead, he felt empty. Cassandra's return. It was after midnight when Cassandra finally came home. Her mascara was smeared, her dress wrinkled, her hands trembling as she unlocked the door. Logan was still awake, sitting in the same place, book closed on his lap. She froze in the doorway when she saw him. "Logan." Her voice cracked. He studied her quietly, his face unreadable. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew, this whole time." Logan didn't answer. He just stared, the silence stretching until she broke. She dropped her clutch, covered her face with her hands, and sobbed. "I'm sorry," she choked. "I didn't mean for it to happen. He meant nothing. It was a mistake. Please, please." Logan finally stood, moving toward her slowly. She looked up, desperate for forgiveness, for some shred of the man she thought she could manipulate. But his eyes were cold. "You destroyed everything," he said quietly. Cassandra reached for him, but he stepped back. And in that moment, she realized it. Logan hadn't just caught her. He had dismantled her. Piece by piece. Patiently. Surgically. Without ever raising his voice. And there was no way back. The silence. That night, Logan lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. He could hear Cassandra crying softly in the master bedroom, the sound muffled by the door. He had wanted this. He had planned for this. He had executed it perfectly. But as the hours stretched, a question gnawed at him. If revenge was supposed to feel like justice, why did it feel so hollow? He closed his eyes, but sleep never came. The morning after the unmasking, the house was unnaturally quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the hollow silence of something broken. Logan stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a mug. The steam rose in curls, but he couldn't taste it. Cassandra sat at the table, her eyes swollen from crying, hair tangled, fingers trembling around her untouched cup. She hadn't spoken much since the night before, except to beg, to plead, to insist that what she had with Brandon meant nothing. Logan didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He just watched her, like a man observing a stranger. And maybe that's all she was now, a stranger who wore his wife's face. Melissa, by noon, news had spread. Marcus had forwarded Logan a dozen screenshots, gossip swirling on local business forums, whispers from Brandon's colleagues, fragments of the dinner confrontation already circulating. Melissa Hale had left her home that morning with 2 suitcases and checked into a hotel near her sister's house. She wasn't answering Brandon's calls. Logan read Melissa's single text to him again and again. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I wish I didn't need to see it this way, but I'm glad I know. He doesn't get to lie to me anymore." No anger, no blame, just a weary sort of gratitude. It weighed heavier on Logan than Cassandra's sobbing had. Cassandra's attempts. That evening, Cassandra tried again. She followed Logan into the living room, knelt on the floor in front of him, and clutched his hands. "Please, Logan, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can start fresh. It was a mistake. I was stupid. I don't want to lose us." Her tears dripped onto his knuckles, but he didn't pull away. He looked down at her with steady eyes. "You didn't make a mistake," he said. "You made a choice, again and again, for months." She flinched, releasing his hands as if his touch had burned her. "I still love you," she whispered. Logan almost laughed. Instead, he stood and walked past her, leaving her crumpled on the carpet. Brandon's collapse. The following week, Brandon's downfall accelerated. Melissa had filed for separation. Word of the affair spread through his office like wildfire, and a major client withdrew, citing unprofessional conduct. Rumors swirled about possible disciplinary action at his firm. Marcus, ever thorough, kept Logan updated. He sent another quiet message. He's unraveling fast. You've gutted his marriage and his career, exactly what you wanted. But Logan hesitated before replying. Did he want this? He wasn't sure anymore. Watching Brandon's life collapse didn't feel like victory. It felt like looking into a mirror of ruin. The neighbors. Even at home, the ripples spread. Neighbors noticed Cassandra's red eyes, the way she avoided gatherings. Some whispered behind curtains. Others offered Logan awkward sympathy. One evening, a neighbor from across the street approached him as he carried groceries in. "Hey man, I heard some things. Just wanted to say, you're stronger than I'd be." Logan forced a polite smile. Thanks, but inside, he hated it. He hadn't wanted to be pitied. He hadn't wanted to be the tragic figure in someone else's story. The hollow victory. 2 weeks after the dinner, Logan sat in the garage late at night, surrounded by tools, the air heavy with motor oil. He stared at the photos, still spread across his workbench, evidence of betrayal, of the revenge he had executed perfectly. He should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he felt the same gnawing emptiness that had haunted him since that night. Revenge had burned bright, like a fire. But when the flames died, all it left was ash. The decision. On the 3rd week, Logan woke early, packed a duffel bag, and left it by the door. Cassandra was still asleep, curled in the bed they no longer shared. He wrote her a note, short and final. "There's nothing left here for me. I hope someday you understand what you destroyed. Goodbye." He didn't sign it with love. He didn't sign it at all. He walked out without looking back. The road. The highway stretched endlessly. Miles of grey ribbon cutting through open plains. Logan drove with the windows down, the cold wind biting his skin, his chest heavy but steady. He wasn't sure where he was going, maybe west, maybe toward the mountains, maybe just far enough until the memories lost their sting. For the first time in weeks, he let himself breathe. Epilogue. Choice. Revenge had given him clarity, but not peace. Cassandra's mask had shattered, Brandon's empire had cracked, Melissa had found the truth she deserved. But Logan? Logan had to face himself. He realized that justice, in the end, wasn't about destroying others. It was about choosing what kind of man he wanted to be when the dust settled. And so he chose distance. He chose to rebuild. He chose to walk away from the ruins rather than live among them. The past would always burn behind him. But the road ahead, the open, unmarked road, belonged to him alone.